That's one big deal. But obviously, going to be curious to hear what Matt says.
Hey everybody, how's it going?
Good, man. How are you?
Well, I've had some drama at work. I don't know about everybody else. Uh, Look, I'll bring you in the room. We went in, we heard nominating speeches. Everyone knew that it was a closely divided caucus with kind of deeply entrenched constituencies on both the side of Jordan and Scalise. I didn't want to, having launched this process, I didn't want to truncate it. I listened to both men. I prayed about it. I went over their plans, and I voted for Jim Jordan. And Jim Jordan lost by 7 votes. And thereafter, it seems he's offered a, a willingness to nominate Steve Scalise. I think that we have to take just a moment and step back and see what's happened here. I mean, Kevin McCarthy's a guy who went and raised $1 billion in uh, special interest money, and now all those special interests are holding IOUs that are worth about as much as Confederate money after General Lee surrendered at Appomattox. And so there's a lot of turmoil among the interests that often put our fellow Americans last. I've seen some of my colleagues say that they're not quite there yet on Steve Scalise. I know that my colleague Lauren Boebert, who I have deep respect for, just had a meeting with Scalise and talked about her desire to see any aid packages regarding Israel and Ukraine not lumped together. First respect, she went into a meeting with Steve Scalise as a no vote. She made specific demands, Smith's on releasing the tapes from January 6th. And she came out of that meeting, maybe not with 100% ironclad commitment on every priority, but certainly with enough comfort to indicate that she would be voting for Scalise on the floor. And while I think there are people out there who've commented on social media that this isn't precisely the outcome they've desired, I think you got to take some directionally correct progress here. Wasn't going to be me. Wasn't going to be any of my 5 or 6 best friends. I thought Jim Jordan would have been the best choice who could have won, and he came up, just 7 votes short. And Jim's still a major voice and figure in our party. I'm going to be his right-hand man still on the House Judiciary Committee, and hopefully we'll be able to get some of the subpoenas through that Kevin McCarthy was slow walking. Hopefully we'll be able to get Hunter Biden in a witness chair. Hopefully we'll get the J6 tapes out. I don't think we really saw best efforts from Kevin McCarthy on balanced budgets. Steve Scalise said in one small group meeting that the way he was going to try to pursue the politics around this tragedy in Israel was not, just to try to lump Ukraine and Israel in some sort of omnibus aid package, but instead to demand that the Senate take up our bills on defense and on the Department of State and Foreign Ops. Those bills have massive cuts in some areas, particularly the Department of State, but they meet our obligations vis-a-vis Israel. And I think that the idea of leveraging single subject bills is more prescient in the mind of Steve Scalise by far than it ever was in the mind of Kevin McCarthy. So that's kind of the lay of the land as we sit here now, but very eager to get a sense of everyone here's sentiment and feedback. And in a few moments off to depart, I'm actually back in Florida for a moment. I'm going to give a speech here and talk to President Trump. But I'll, as they say in Congress, I'll yield back for any questions.
Well, thank you for joining us, Congressman Gaetz. And I can't tell you how much accessibility and coming to talk to us. We've been active all day. The way we see this is that if we get a band of congressmen together, a coalition of 5 around any single issue, can't they extract a commitment from any speaker candidate to take specific action?
Well, so long as it doesn't create a group of 5 or 6 or 7 on the contravening position that could utilize the same leverage, right? Because one thing, I mean, I think you all have seen how I've utilized leverage in the last few weeks, and it is not in a vacuum. There are other externalities at play. There are concessions that any speaker needs to make, and there are rule changes that no speaker will be able to make. For example, I've had a lot of questions about the one member motion to vacate. Oh, does that go away with McCarthy? No, no, it does not. The one member motion to vacate will remain unless there are 217 or 218 votes to take that out of the rules. And I can tell you as of right now, there are not even close.
That was my second question. So on our first call to action, and it's up on the jumbotron, right? We've had people calling their members of Congress asking to put a coalition together around securing the border and getting a handle on any immigrants who are here, right? Especially in wake of the Israel stuff. Is that effective? How could we be like dialing in like our influence with all these people who are making contact?
Well, I can tell you what the Biden administration wants. They want a bill that's going to be 28 billion more for Ukraine, a bunch more for Israel. And keep in mind, Israel's on a 3.8 billion dollar auto pay. They are not constrained in their aid distribution the same way other nations are. You can like that or not like that. It's the way things are, and it actually enjoys a great deal of bipartisan support. So, with that as the case, and the other thing they would lash onto that bill, the administration has signaled, is what they call migration assistance, what Republicans in the Senate might call border security, but really it's just more money to process more people into the country illegally. So that would be a bad, corrupt deal to wind all those things together. And I would suggest as a call to action, however people think about Israel and Ukraine and the border of our country, those things deserve their own dignity and they need to be dealt with separately, not lumped together.
That's a great point. I want to give a couple other people. I know your time's limited. Jen, and then Diligent, and then Phenom.
Hi, Congressman Gaetz. Thank you for joining us. I know something that's on on our minds, a lot of minds of Americans, and I know it's on your mind as well, is these January 6 tapes and the thousands upon thousands of hours that Congress is not releasing to the public and releasing so these guys can use it in their trial. What can we do to get those released? And I think that is another top priority that we, the people, would like to see.
You're absolutely right. And Kevin McCarthy's unwillingness to meet his own commitment on the January 6 tapes is an underreported contributing factor to his removal. The media doesn't like to talk about that, but it mattered to a great deal of us. Mattered so much to me. I went to the DC Gulag and promised those family members that McCarthy would face removal if he did not release those tapes. While I have not received an explicit commitment on that from Mr. Scalise, I know that several of my colleagues are talking to him about it. I suspect that Scalise may decentralize this decision to the House Administration Committee. Brian Stile and Barry Loudermilk tag team that they're two congressmen who work that committee and work that issue pretty extensively. And I'm going to be. Nothing has diminished in my vigor to get this done. And I will continue to use every tool at my disposal to get it done. That said, I'm one guy, and frankly, it would be helpful if instead of, 10 or 15 members of Congress, we had 50 or 70 members of Congress who prioritized the release of the January 6th tapes.
Love that. Diligent, go ahead.
Oh, Phenom, you go ahead. Go ahead. Ladies first.
Well, thank you for your chivalry. Hi, Congressman Gaetz. Thank you for joining us today. So, my question is, a year ago, November, McCarthy told us that, he called for Mayorkas to resign or face impeachment. That was a year ago now. So, I'm curious, regards to that and the other promises McCarthy made but didn't keep, how do Scalise and Jordan differ? Like, where do they agree and where do they differ?
So it's a really great question, and here's how I would think about it in terms of scale. The different let's assume you're of the view that, well, you like me, you certainly prefer Scalise to McCarthy, but you also would have preferred Jordan to Scalise. In that mindset, what I can tell you is that the distance between McCarthy and Scalise is larger than you might think, and the difference between Scalise and Jordan is actually probably smaller than you might think. in the candidate forums that Scalise and Jordan had, and I participated in multiple of them, they were almost mirror images of one another, except one issue. The principal campaign disagreement is that Jordan fundamentally believes that a continuing resolution is the best way to force the Senate to take up our single subject spending bills. Scalise was probably less inclined to believe that that was the only way. And on that substantive point, I actually probably agree with Scalise more, though I ended up voting for Jordan as a consequence of our broader relationship, and just, when you've been sitting next to the guy for 7 years and you see what he's able to bring to the fight, it ultimately was the tipping point for me. But I think that Scalise is less inclined to govern by continuing resolution than Jim was, and that was the principal disagreement they had in their campaign.
So Congressman Gates, do you think Scalise is going to be able to whip the votes he needs to get the speakership at this point?
I think he's got a good shot at it. I don't think anything's a certainty, and he doesn't have them right now, which is why he's not the speaker right now. Uh, I was very against kind of resolving this behind closed doors. I believed that upon McCarthy's removal, we just should have moved right into the ugly, messy floor action of nominations and votes and let it sort out. And time and time again, you guys should know that my Republican colleagues said, "Oh, this is such an embarrassment. This is humiliating. We're a national laughingstock." And I don't see it that way. I actually think that when we are able to captivate the attention of the country, we can draw them into our ideas by talking about what we believe in. Back in January, when I gave speeches on the floor about what I believed in, people agreed, disagreed, but there was no question about what I was fighting for. And in the debate on the motion to vacate, you all got to see pretty clearly what I was fighting against. And it was the influence of the lobbyists and the special interests who owned Kevin McCarthy, and frankly, far too many of our members on both sides of the aisle. So I think that it was probably imprudent to do so much of this behind closed doors. And we just need to have the confidence to know that disagreeing with one another in front of the public doesn't make us look weaker. It actually makes us look more intellectual and stronger, and that we're working through these things. I have been unsuccessful in like imposing that ethic on my Republican colleagues thus far, and that's why you saw it play out like it did.
From Matt, just quick. Matt, quick question. Did you mean to mute me, Dustin?
Go ahead,
Okay,
Vigil.
Yeah,
I'll
we
be,
can't
I'll be,
hear you, Faisal.
I'll be brief. What's the next step from divorcing money from politics?
Well, I'm ready to play Let's Make a Deal, because there is nothing my Republican colleagues want more than to raise the threshold on the motion to vacate. They do not want one person to be able to do that anymore. And I fought hard for that rule, and I prefer that rule, but I would be willing to negotiate a higher threshold on a motion to vacate if lobbyists and PACs couldn't donate to federal campaigns. I would be willing to increase the threshold if members of Congress had a lifetime ban on becoming lobbyists and registered foreign agents for other countries. I would be willing to negotiate on the motion to vacate if members of Congress could not trade individual stocks. So it's an accountability tool, and it is somewhat fungible with other accountability tools. But that is going to be the negotiation that I endeavor upon, because if we have leadership that is not responsive to the needs of the country or the needs of the elected Republican representatives, then the motion to vacate is something that is absolutely necessary to keep people on track and to their own word.
I didn't like you before today, but you actually slightly, don't get too excited, guys, but slightly turned me on to, um, I agree with everything you just said completely.
I think it
Don't
was
make a
freaking
don't make a
awesome.
habit don't make a habit of it. You're still allowed to dislike me for a variety of other reasons.
Well, Congressman Gates, the only thing I'd add, like I'm with you. I've been since January saying that the attention, especially with a media who does not ever give us the opportunity to accurately present what our agenda is, what our platform is, what we're actually trying to get. Like the attention, this gives us the opportunity. So I want to congratulate you and thank you for your courage in standing up, like on behalf of all of us who are so frustrated with process and government all the way around. Diligent, go ahead. You're the co-host while we still got time.
Thank you. And thank you, Matt, for everything you've said so far. I think the motion to vacate has been at the forefront of our conversation pretty much throughout the day because we feel like it's the people's only tool to hold the House accountable. My question is what are the concession holdouts that you're adhering to right now and the America First Caucus?
Well, I think the holdouts largely want to see Steve Scalise agree to many of the terms that Kevin McCarthy agreed to and then violated. Different people have different features of that agenda they care more about or less about, but I think that's largely the nexus of that negotiation right now.
Can we? Is there a way that we can impose deadlines on these concessions instead of waiting, 9 or 10 months down the road?
Oh no, absolutely. And matter of fact, I mean, Kevin McCarthy blew through the deadlines on term limits and balanced budget votes, and those contributed to his ouster as well. But yeah, I agree. In Washington, there's always something that's more pressing to handle in that particular moment than maybe an uncomfortable commitment you made to do what's right by the people but bad for the lobbyists. So any commitment that is made without a deadline is illusory, especially if there's an effort to raise the threshold on the motion to vacate. And you see what they're trying to do. I mean, trust me, there will be a sincere effort to expel me from the Republican conference, maybe even expel me from the United States Congress, and they will use any pretense at their disposal to achieve that objective because they loathe the fact that they are having to go through this. But I don't think this makes us look bad. I think this makes us look like we actually give a shit about the work and that it's not all just failure theater and press releases. If we didn't care about the work, we wouldn't do this. We'd just go to the next embassy party and fill out the next deposit slip on the next lobbyist fundraiser. But we actually want to do the necessary, hard, often mundane and boring work of gating off funds from the programs that have been most aggressively weaponized against the people.
Hey, Matt, I want to maybe expand upon something you said just a moment ago because I think it's really important. The one change of all of them that you're talking about in terms of making any changes to the motion to vacate is the lobbying ban because that can get passed into the ethics in the House. And
Bingo.
and maybe explain to people one my observation in the 8 years that I spent on Capitol Hill is that the one thing that most drives, particularly the Cardinals, which for those in here, those are all the people on the committee and subcommittees of the Appropriations Committee, particularly the Cardinals, but others as well, their vote patterns really follow their ability to grab up a $300,000-$400,000, maybe even multi-million-dollar pay from a lobbying firm because of the influence that they have had. I don't know if it has to be a lifetime ban. It'd have to be 10 or 15 years at a minimum, but something like that would have to happen because that's really not the only, but a major driving force into why the establishment folks are able to maintain and gain so much power in the caucus. Would you not agree with that?
I do. And what is really exciting about this is we don't need the Senate and we don't need President Biden. We can put it in our own rules of the House of Representatives that none of our members will meet with or be lobbied by a former member who is a registered lobbyist. It's that easy. If they haven't, sweat off a substantial lobby ban, maybe it is 10 years, maybe it's 15. I don't know. I think that if you put on our jersey to write the laws for our country, you shouldn't then get to influence those laws for money or for a foreign government. I put registered foreign agents in the same category as lobbyists. Hey guys, I gotta run. I'm gonna go see Trump here in Palm Beach. But thanks for having the conversation with me. I'm sure I'll be back on the spaces because it's really important that our activists understand why we have done this, what is at stake, and that it's not over. This is not, parading around with Kevin McCarthy's scalp is a how is a hollow vid not get to the outcomes that actually deliver for our people? So that's what I'll stay working on. I appreciate y'all. Thanks for having me tonight.
Hey,
Get your
Matt.
colleagues to come to X, Matt. Thank
I was
you.
going to say, don't hesitate to let Trump know. We'd love for him to drop in and talk
He's got
strategy too.
it.
For all the Republicans that think that they look like fools, we'll show them. We'll tell them.
Amen.
Yeah.
I was going
What's
to
it
say,
called?
if you think I don't hate you, I still hate you. But well done.
Can we just talk about Fidgetal's bromance with Matt Gaetz right now, guys?